Is this the greatest mitten showdown of all time? You bet it is, but only because I've never seen a mitten showdown before. Welcome back to Roots and Peaks. A year ago, I took out the Torrid Mitts by Enlightened Equipment. You can see that video there. The Torrid Mitts, right here, are pretty expensive. They're $70. $70 is a lot of money to spend on mittens. So I wanted to compare the $70 Torrid Mitt to a $35 alternative. Before we get into this review, I have to ask you a favor. Please subscribe. This is the Hot Shot Pop Top Mitten. Hot Shot. And now, welcome to the top-down view. You see, I've got both mittens laid out before you. You'll notice that the Torrid Mitt is much, much longer and bigger overall. Although I will say that the Torrid Mitt weighs quite a bit less than this Hot Shot mitten. It's a mouthful. I need to start by recapping how I used the Torrid Mitt last time I tested it, because the Pop Top Hot Shot mitten is a slightly different creature. As you slide on the Torrid Mitt, it is kind of gigantic and goes over anything. And the version that I got has a pop top. You can also get them without, but I think that's silly. Then from here, you can put this little piece of shot cord around the top of the mitten and hold it back. And now you've got access to your fingers. But as anybody who's hiked in winter knows, this formation is going to leave you with very cold fingers and a very warm thumb. But because I use camera gear, I need access to these digits. My solution was to use a glove liner. My solution was to use a glove liner. These are the 4-class merino wool glove liners from Decathlon. And I absolutely love these things, but they're always out of stock. And they also don't last a super long time, as you can see with that little hole right there. However, if you combine these two items, you can cover your fingers, have a ton of dexterity, use the electronic pads, and these liners allow a bunch of airflow so you're not warm. Then I found that my thumb, my dumb thumb, was getting too warm. So what I actually did is, while I didn't need the warmth of the mitten, I pulled my whole hand right through the mitten and used these almost as a wrist gaiter. Now, why would I do that? Well, in winter, you don't want to have to stop to adjust your layering system. So what this allowed me to do was, when I stopped to take a rest, I could just pull these right back on, flip this out of here, the shot cord, right up over. So now I've got a full coverage mitten, and it is incredibly warm. The other benefit of these is they're super light. So it never felt like a bother to have them on. I just use them as wrist gaiters. They could also cover my watch fully without it being a problem. It doesn't feel uncomfortable in any sort of way. So these are really awesome, but I had to kind of modify how to use them. And I wanted to see if I could get the same results with a much cheaper product. In comes the Hot Shot Pop Top Mitten. Now, this looks like it would be a much smaller, much lighter package than the Torrid Mitts. However, it is much smaller, but it is not much lighter. There are a lot of elements of this that add to weight. One is super cool, but it is it adds weight. There are, on this glove, there are magnets all over the place. And there's some here and here, and these allow the pop top to click open. There's one on your thumb too to pop open. So let me show you the way that these work. Put your hands in just like you do the other mitten. And then when you want to open the pop top, you do just like the other mitten, but oh, what's this? They've got a built-in glove liner. So that's really cool. And it does have this section for electronics. But as you can see, the magnet holds that back. So that's a lot easier than the shot cord for these guys. So far, so good. Now, the thumb also seems to have magnets and a little divider here. So unlike the Torrid mitts, where there's only this pop top and your thumb is just your thumb, this thumb is pretty, I mean, it's pretty interesting because you can access your thumb without having to pull this down and become that wrist gaiter. But this thumb, I think, is the Achilles heel of these particular mittens. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the positive with these guys. These guys are feature rich. As you can see here, there's a zipper, and this is in the top. And at first I thought, what, do you put your Lunchables in there? What is the point of having a zipper here? Then I realized that they're for hot hands. You can put a little hand warmer in there, zip it closed, and it'll keep your hand much warmer. That's really cool. The fact that they have a glove liner inside, sewn in, built in, is really, really cool because it's just one less thing that you have to buy. And these magnets, even though they add weight, are so cool. I love this idea. It's really awesome. Now, that's where the good ends, unfortunately, for the hot shots. Now, for $35, these are not bad mittens. I would use these for a lot of activities around the house because if you destroy them, it's $35. Not a huge deal. But they do have a big problem with hiking that the Torrid mitts do not have. And that all is around this built-in liner and lack of built-in liner for your thumb. Because there's a built-in liner, you're not going to wear another liner. I'm not going to wear these and this. You know, I'm not going to shove this in there and have 2 layers of liners. That's just a recipe for my hand sweating itself to death. So you've got 4 fingers that are covered with your liner, and your thumb is not. So it doesn't seem like it would be that big a deal, right? I mean, a lot of times you're not using your thumb. You don't need to use your thumb for electronics, so you could just keep it in here. Makes a ton of sense. Here's where it becomes problematic. 2 different ways. One, I see these as a failure point. I think that these glove liners are going to wear out before the rest of the mitten, which means that you're going to throw out a $35 pair of mittens because the liner is broken, or you're going to have to cut out the liner and re-sew it, which seems like too much of a pain. So that's one problem. The other problem is because your thumb isn't covered, but there's this flap. Your thumb, if you're hiking, and especially if you're using trekking poles, your thumb becomes exposed. So as you're hiking, this little area of your thumb gets super cold. And unless you're wearing liners or something like that, you might even get frostbite on this little section of your thumb and not know it, because the rest of your hand is going to feel nice and toasty. You've got this pop-top mitt on, and maybe you've got your hot hands in here, and this is covered. You think you're all set, and then you get back, and you've got a red line here, or even worse, a white line here, where the cold has been getting to your thumb that whole time. The cold air, maybe snow, everything has been encroaching on your thumb. Now, this is even worse if you use trekking poles, because as you're using the trekking poles, these get pulled up, pulled up, pulled up. I'm afraid that I can't give these a great review for that reason. Otherwise, these $35 gloves are pretty great. I mean, yes, they are heavier. They probably won't last quite as long. The fit and finish is just okay. But that thumb is a problem. What I would do if I wanted this pair of gloves and liked everything else about them is I think I would sew this flap shut and just deal with kind of having a warm thumb. And I may also, seems counterproductive, I may also seam rip this liner piece out and sew these. So, I mean, that would be a cost-effective way to get a really great mitten that would work for my purposes. Now, you may have a different use case for mittens. These may work great, fantastic. Maybe you want to wear a pair of liners even though you have the liner top. Maybe your hands get really cold and this is a good solution. My hands don't get really cold, so this was not the best solution for me. That said, $70, I think, for the Torrid mitts versus $35. So you can buy almost 3 of these for the price of these. You could buy one of these and experiment a lot with it and see if it works. I don't think these are going to work as well in the snow. I think they're going to get kind of soaked. It's not the same material that this is, where the water is just going to come off of these. But you could get some waterproof mitts to go over your mitts as well. It's a lot of mitts. The long and the short of it is I don't think that I can, in good faith, recommend these mittens. I mean, unless you've listened to what I had to say and you think that they would work great for you and the thumb isn't a problem, I mean, in that case, go for it. You can buy them on Amazon. I'll link them below. I think it's worth saving your pennies and getting a solution that will last and work for you for a long time. The one exception to that is if you beat the living hell out of your gear, which a lot of hikers do, these may rip. The fabric is very lightweight. Intentionally, it's supposed to be lightweight. I will imagine that I'll probably have to replace these at some point, and that's going to hurt because they're really expensive. And I have to replace these about once every year or every 2 years. And that hurts because these are like $30 for these nice merino wool ones. You can get much cheaper ones though, if you don't need this. So what wins? The cheap pair or the expensive pair? For me, the Torrid mitts win every time. But if you're on a budget, these will get you through. Just watch out for that thumb opening. Maybe even tape it or just stitch it shut. Honestly, I think that would do it. And also, you get the benefit of these super cool magnets. Now, I'm a gadget guy, and I love that. All right, I think that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe.